There's someone new in the Wartburg Chapel, and she's not much older than the traditional college student. Rebecca Baird, a 2018 Wartburg alumna, is the college's first pastoral intern. She will serve in the role for 4 years while taking classes through Wartburg Theological Seminary.
It's kind of teaching me how to just take on this role of finding my pastoral identity. I think that transitioning from a student into this role has been really challenging, but also really validating in the sense that showing me that I can do this and that I'm really called to be in this position.
Baird was officially installed into her role on Wednesday by Dean of Spiritual Life, Brian Beckstrom. Beckstrom worked with Baird during her time as a student in the classroom and as the band coordinator for Wartburg's Wednesday night service, Sanctuary. As pastoral intern, Baird has continued her work with Wartburg students.
Oftentimes she thinks of things that I wouldn't think of because my years of being a student are far behind me, a college student. And she still remembers what it was like to be a college student. And so I feel like that gives us a really important perspective as well.
As she began her position in July, Baird hasn't been in her new role for long. However, she has already helped with multiple spiritual life and campus ministry events, including preaching at the parting service during orientation week.
It was kind of my first time in the pulpit in this role, and I think that that was just memorable to me, kind of introducing myself to the students that I will eventually be graduating alongside. Also just reminding them that they're joining a community here at Wartburg College that's going to support them and love them.
Reporting for Night Vision News, I'm Anna Kowal.
Increased rainfall over the past few weeks has caused problems for some Iowans. Just last week, Governor Kim Reynolds issued a disaster proclamation for southwest counties that lay along the Missouri River. Although this is the other side of the state, the Waverly area is also seeing the effects of heavy rainfall. Many students of Wartburg College have had vehicles displaced due to flooding. Rain is likely tonight, with weather.com placing the precipitation chance at 90% with thunderstorms throughout the day. Chances are also high going into next week. Stay tuned for our 7-day forecast later in the broadcast.
Everyone, please help me give a warm Waverly welcome to the next President of the United States, Senator Elizabeth Warren.
The Wartburg Democrats invited Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren to Wartburg's campus to hold a town hall meeting on Saturday, November 16th. When she stepped on the stage, she was greeted enthusiastically by a crowd of over 575 attendees. She was introduced by Vice President of the Wartburg Democrats, Wyatt Hintermeister, after he gave a short speech to warm up the crowd.
I see hope in our Wartburg students who don't back down because things get hard. No, we rise above those odds because that's what Wartburg students do. Go nice!
Warren's main focus of her speech was economic hardship and her desire to lead a government dedicated to working for the people.
Today, a full-time minimum wage job in America will not keep a mama and a baby out of poverty. That is wrong, and that is why I am in this fight. Today, the question asked in Washington is, where do we set the minimum wage to maximize the profits of giant multinational corporations? Well, I don't want a government that works for giant multinational corporations. I want one that works for our families.
The Iowa Department of Transportation, or DOT, is conducting a traffic survey on the recently constructed Bremer Avenue. The idea began with city administration, who wanted to ensure drivers weren't being unnecessarily obstructed by traffic.
It's always been an issue not only for the community but for the truckers, because there are 7 or 8 signalized intersections just on Bremer Avenue from east to west or west to east, and every one of those is an inconvenience for the truck traffic particularly.
A University of Northern Iowa organization, the Racial and Ethnic Coalition, or REC, launched a social media campaign called UNI is Not an Ally, confronting the UNI administration over the misrepresentation of minorities on campus last Friday. The group launched accounts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, releasing testimonials of their own perceived misrepresentations. The movement started with a student-organized Waka Flocka concert that took place on campus last February. UNI pulled public ticket sales shortly after the announcement of the concert due to worry of gang violence. Minority groups on campus felt offended due to what they considered secrecy and miscommunication surrounding the event. As a result, the REC was formed. Since then, the organization has felt ignored and started the movement UNI is not an ally as a way to make their issue public. Faculty leadership released a statement in support of the movement, along with other campus organizations.
When deciding what she wanted to do, Ruth looked into many options, including her previous job at a jail. But she knew being an officer was her calling, and she wants to show that it's okay to take risks to get to the place you're meant to be.
I think it just shows that, anyone can do whatever they set their mind to. A lot of people, it is a male-dominated field, and for people, especially younger women and girls, to see that females can do this job and can do a good job at it is kind of what motivates me to continue on too, to let other people know that this is a possibility for them.
Joining me now in studio is Adam Hoffman, a mayoral candidate for Waverly. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question is, why exactly are you running for mayor?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that we can improve on in our community, making sure that we look at all avenues of listening to people and representing them to the best of our ability.
So I guess my first question is just, why are you running for mayor again?
Well, the answer I give in jest is I haven't received enough abuse yet. But realistically, I'm running because there's still unfinished business to do with the city. Listen to the people and be a liaison, so to speak, between the city staff and the citizens of Waverly.
Across the board this winter, it seems every athletic program at Wartburg College is focused on one thing: domination. While the fall sports like volleyball, women's soccer, and football are all likely to punch their tickets to the NCAA tournament, the winter sports wait for no one. Looking first to wrestling, the number 3 ranked Knights are focused on making an impact after finishing just 6th nationally in the 2019 NCAA championships. As a program, the Knights have won 14 national championships, and this year will be defined by aiming for number 15. With top returners including Kyle Briggs, Brock Rathbun, and Chris Rumpf, the Knights begin the season with 6 wrestlers ranked and a fresh mindset.
The Wartburg players are ready to take the stage again, this time showcasing the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. The story follows Christopher Boone, played by second-year Nathan Onsgaard, and his journey towards self-discovery. This isn't the typical coming-of-age story, however. It also provides a perspective of a 15-year-old boy with autism.
I think we tend to live in our own bubbles, and it's nice to see people coming together and working on something much bigger than, their everyday lives.
The players are hoping to provide insight on the experience of living with autism through the relaxation of theater. For Night Vision News, I'm Rachel Green.
M4 is 4-0.
Waverly Shell Rocks Robotics Club is sending 2 teams to Wapsie Valley on October 26th to compete in the first Tech Challenge qualifiers. If they win this competition, they would put themselves on a path that would ultimately lead to the first Tech Challenge World Championships in April. After the challenges are announced in September, the students meet weekly to work on their bots. The robots are a huge passion project for the students and take a lot of time to perfect.
How many hours? We meet every week for about 3 to 4 hours, so a lot.
One thing's for sure, both teams will surely show their competitive streaks this coming Saturday. For KV News, I'm Ethan Faltzgraff.
Last week, 10 Democratic candidates for president took the stage in Houston, Texas, attempting to convince potential voters why they were the right choice to represent the party in the 2020 election. Between the 10 who qualified, as well as a few candidates who did not meet the requirements for the debate, all sides of the party and their differing views on platforms were on display, for good and for ill.
It looks to me like the Democratic Party has some decisions to make about the sort of candidate they like to have. We've got some people who are really pushing hard on an extra progressive agenda. We have some that are trying to sound a little more moderate, and I think in the next months we're going to see if the polls in the Democratic Party decide that they prefer one or the other.
One of the biggest question marks coming into the 2019 football season for the Wartburg Knights was their situation under center after All-American quarterback Matt Sacha's graduation earlier this year. The Knights have since embraced a dual quarterback system headlined by Noah Dodd and Jace Moore. I had the chance to speak with both of them and see how they're adapting to their new roles and to each other. Two athletes, one position. Noah Dodd and Jace Moore have each had spotlights on them this entire season. Following the graduation of Matt Sasha earlier this year, it was apparent that one of them would be filling the gap under center, but few thought it would end up being both. While Dodd has been dubbed the starter through the first 4 games of the season, Moore actually leads the team in overall touches. With their situation so far on the season uncertain, one might wonder about the level of competition between the two. Moore assures me that it's there, but that they use that competition as fuel.
The 2019 elections took place this week, with Waverly declaring multiple local positions when citizens took to the polls on Tuesday. This election cycle spelled significant change for the city government, with all incumbent positions up for re-election being overturned by their opponents. The scuffle for mayor culminated with Adam Hoffman taking the position from incumbent Dean Soash at 1,397 votes to 1,249.
The Ward 2 council seat went to Chris Glazer, landing 361 votes, topping Mike Hank Gardner's 252. The Ward 4 council seat was also overturned, going to Heather Beaufort from Mike Scherer at 302 votes to 253.
Finally, the city council at-large seat was flipped from incumbent Edith Waldstein to Matthew Schneider with 1,341 votes versus Waldstein's 1,290, a margin of only 51 votes.
Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris first announced her campaign last January. Since then, Senator Harris has been consistently coming in 4th or 5th place in national polls. In June, she managed to stand out amidst the crowded Democratic field during the first primary debate. And now, she came to Waterloo on September 20th to court Iowans' votes before the Iowa caucuses begin.
Right, this is a moment in time where we are each being asked and required to look in a mirror and ask the question being, who are we? And I think we all know part of the answer to that question is we are better than this. And we must fight for the best of who we are, and fight, of course, we will. And here's the thing that we have to remember. Fighting is not new for us. There is nothing we have ever gained by way of progress as a country without a good fight.
Welcome back. Last week we brought you the story of the upcoming play, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Joining with me now is Megan Molaski, the director of the show. Hello, how are you today?
How are you? Fine.
So obviously we have someone special in the studio today. So what kind of role does Benji play?
Yes, this is Benji. He's my foster dog. He is from Retrieving Freedom. So he has a very small part in the play. I don't want to give it too much away, but you will see him in the second act. So
awesome. Yeah. Luckily, Professor Sam Stapleton was available to take on a new adventure. Stapleton has spent time in many ensembles, having played violin professionally for 16 years. From creating and adapting orchestral ensembles in Boston to conducting at Central College and the University of Iowa, his variety of abilities has prepared him for his new position at Wartburg.
Honestly, I really like the diversity of things they have me doing. It's kind of what my life's, it's very fortuitous in a way that the job that was needed to be filled here perfectly kind of lines up with my skills, the violin, teaching, conducting. So, I mean, I think it worked out very well for everybody.
After the original merger, 14 firefighters resigned or retired from the department. The department came under further criticism when a former fire chief said the cross-training was unsafe and has led to issues with staffing and emergency response.
I see the public safety officer model and the cross-training staying around. I see our people gaining more experience, having more efficiencies with it. You know, one of the efficiencies that we definitely tout is that we like in this facility, when there's a firefighter, a public safety officer that's a firefighter that's not actively engaged in something in the firefighter end of the building, they can go down to the lobby and help people who come here for police services or report a crime if all the police are out on the street.
The issue seeped into the recent mayoral race, which had 3 candidates, each with different opinions on the office. Mayor-elect Rob Green said as part of his campaign platform, he supports only some aspects of the public safety office and wants to evaluate where the city should move next. For Night Vision News, I'm Nathan Stephanie.
For our final story in sports this week, the national wrestling community has been in mourning following the passing of the legendary Wartburg Wrestling 3-time national champion Kenny Anderson. I had the opportunity to speak with those in the Wartburg community who knew him best.
Just when I was extremely young, when I was 7, everybody would pretend to be in the NHL Finals, NBA Finals. Me and my brother would throw down blankets on the wooden floor and pretend we're in NCAA Finals. So it's for just any kid to accomplish his dream. It's amazing. I don't know.
But for Kenny Anderson, it became more than just a dream. 3 NCAA Division III national titles, 3 Massachusetts state titles, countless lives touched, and 1 staggering legacy. This is just a small part of what Anderson leaves behind following the announcement of his death on Sunday, October 20th. Anderson was 29 years old. Jim Miller, the former head coach of the Knights during Anderson's tenure at Wartburg, talks about his reaction to hearing of the former athlete's passing.
Felt like I got hit up the head by a sledgehammer when I heard that news, you know. And Stephen Klemenakis was the one that called me. Stephen was the first one of a number of Louisiana kids that came to Wartburg, and Kenny was living with Stephen's brother. And so he called, and yeah, man, it's still hard to grasp. It's still hard to put your head around it, you know.
Anderson's legacy was matched only by his story. He grew up in the community of Billerica, Massachusetts. Before coming to Wartburg, he hit his self-described rock bottom washing buses in his hometown. Looking back, Wartburg head wrestling coach Eric Keller believes those were the moments that shaped him.
He lived for moments like that, you know, and I think a lot of that was those are the moments that he'd always dreamed of, you know. I mean, I think for him, as a kid growing up, probably those days washing buses, those are the moments that got him through, you know. Those are the moments that he was envisioning. Those are the times that he visioned being on that stage, wrestling for a championship, that moment, you know. And so when it happened, when it was there, he embraced it.
Jim Miller and Eric Keller's final time coaching together happened to coincide with Anderson's second national championship match. After coming out on top, Miller recalled an encounter he had with his final national champion.
Kenny Anderson said, Coach, I know you remember your first national champion. I hope you won't forget your last. And I most definitely will not forget Kenny Anderson, and neither will so many others. We love Kenny Anderson.